Hello, everybody. Welcome to Reserve Seating. We are kicking off Jason Scott Lee month. Usually, this is Mike month. Mike month will come later in the year. But we had to come up with some kind of fun theme, and I had Jason Scott Lee month percolating because this guy was the coolest person ever to me in May of 1993 when Dragon the Bruce Lee story came out, and I invested heavy in Jason Scott Lee stock in the 90s, and nobody would listen to me because I was in junior high, and they're like, "Why are you this way?" Then Rudyard Kipling's The Jungle Book came out, and I was just like, "That's 100 mil easy," and it didn't happen. And then I was like, "What's happening to my boy?" And he had a up and down 90s and 2000s and stuff like that. But I think he's got the goods, and I want to dedicate a month to him. So, all right, Dragon the Bruce Lee story. I kind of laid it out that I was a big like fan, even though like I think this is the first movie where I really kind of knew anything about Bruce Lee other than, that he was this iconic action hero. I knew more about Brandon Lee because of Rapid Fire than I did Bruce. But what was your experience with Bruce Lee, I guess, like before watching Dragon for the first time? Like, were you a Bruce Lee fan?
Bruce Lee is, to me, you know, undeniable. Like when
Mhm.
you watch, I will like he's like such a talent as like a martial artist and stuff, but his movies to me, uh, I'm I'm not like a huge fan of any of them. I've watched, the big ones. Like he only has like the few, right? So
Yeah.
Couple.
I I'm not like the biggest. I love the fight scenes in them, but to
Hmm.
me, like watching like the Bruce Lee movies is kind of like I don't know, like watching like Rebel. You watch Rebel Without a Cause, and like you just kind of think of like Beverly, like all the stuff that ripped it off, like
Yeah.
Beverly
Hmm.
Hills 1010 and stuff like that. Like it plays to like that to me. But like a Bruce Lee movie, I really love like everything that it influenced
Right.
more than
Sure.
I love Bruce Lee movies. But like, because I love like the Shaw Brothers movies and like all those kung fu movies, and then how Bruce Lee sort of influenced all the American movies, which is, I guess, what this movie is sort of about. But I love like 80s action movies and all the martial arts in those movies, but and John Woo movies and all that. But Bruce Lee to me isn't like he's not one of my guys, I will say.
Okay.
No, yeah, and it's I'm almost exactly the same as Joel, which is like it's like you watch the movies, you appreciate them. Obviously, understand the artistry, appreciate the sort of heritage of the sort of influence and all that stuff. It's more of a it's his movies are more like homework for me, where it's kind of like I watch these so I can
Hmm.
appreciate them, but I've never hit that like spark. Honestly, the most interesting Bruce Lee's ever been to me is when I'm watching Dragon the Bruce Lee story.
I find it interesting that, people real like of all ages, it doesn't matter if you were there in the 70s and the late 60s, and a Bruce Lee fan from the get-go.
Right.
Uh, they feel very protective of Bruce Lee. So like whenever there's depiction of him in like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, people like are like they can't parse that this is like a take on a character or on a person. Birth of a Dragon, I don't think was like as important enough to make a dent, but I do think that it's funny that Dragon the Bruce Lee story is sort of held in like not this is scripture, but like this is how his story should be told while they posit that his life was interrupted by kitchen fights and like dance fights all the time that he throws sailors into each other and make ball sounds, and everybody's just like, no, this is the text.
My favorite parts are like the parts where it's just like a random fight just breaks out. That's why I
Oh,
love the first half of it so much more than the second half.
Sure.
yeah, I love it too. I think, well, first off, the Foley effects people are just dining
Oh,
out in this movie. Like,
oh, rules.
I love the popping sounds when they're cracking all their knuckles. I love like the explosion sounds when he's hitting the ice blocks. I mean, it's just great. And also the movie reminded me a lot of a music biopic this time, where the fight scenes are the music sequences
Totally.
and
Eh.
everything. And also I think the movie also operates as the more successful biopics do, where my test is always what are you using this person's life to say? Like what theme or moral or whatever are you getting across? And I think with the Breakfast at Tiffany's sequence,
Yeah.
um, they're not just paying lip service to like the institutionalized racism that Asian actors faced at that time, or just charting a Wikipedia page of events. That I think that's the subtext of the movie, or maybe just the text of the movie. And I think that they do an earnest enough job at using Bruce Lee's life to maybe like have that be a B story to the whole thing. I do want to get back to what you said, Joel. You said you liked the first half of the movie more than the second half. Like, what was it about the first half and the second half that like made you have that take?
Yeah, my letterbox review was like, sorry, the brutalist, but Dragon Bruce Lee story did it first. I just like I think the first half is a lot more fun
Yeah.
and kind of has that sort of like kind of punchy energy to it, and it kind of it becomes a drama. There's obviously like the ice fight at the end where the guy's brother comes back out of nowhere. And it's just a lot sillier in the first half, and I was like, oh, this might. I'd never seen it before, so I was like, oh, this is like a classic. Why have I never watched this? And then I sort of like, as it kept going, I was like, okay, it's starting to be more
Yeah.
biopic
Mhm.
drama. Like the the relationship between him and Lauren Holly starts to be sort of the main thing.
It gets way
Yeah.
plottier. It gets
Yeah.
way, way plottier. Yeah, which is to a movie like this, that's kind of to its detriment.
They kind of also like a music biopic instead of drugs, like here it's sort of like ancestral curses are like the drug scenes. It's like interesting how they kind of like inversed that in a way. I think also one thing for me, just kind of having a history of the movie with the movie since watching it from the 90s is it's one of for me, it's like one of the best scores I've ever heard in a movie. Like they used a lot of the themes and the tracks from this in like trailers
Yeah.
throughout the 90s. Like the Truman Show, I remember was one example. But I think like it's sort of like really like cranks up the emotion level. It's between like Jason Scott Lee's performance, which is just so charismatic, and the score. I think those two elements like bust through the conventional Rob Cohen-ness of it all and make it into something for me a little bit larger.
Can we talk Lauren Holly for a minute?
Of
Hmm.
course, we can always talk Lauren Holly, Rob.
She rules. She's really fun. She's really charismatic. I like their dynamic. I like their chemistry. It's not necessarily reflecting what probably actually happened. You know, like Bruce Lee at this point, as you guys were both alluding to earlier, like so much of Bruce Lee now, it's like 70% of it is legend. Like it's really hard to know what was
Hmm.
actually real because his life has been so sort of gone over with a fine tooth comb. And as you said, his fans are so protective. And, you know, it's like Spielberg, where like you'll never really know what's bullshit and what's actually true.
Hmm.
But in terms of their dynamic and their interplay and the way that she challenged him and things like that, I thought it's a really good performance.
She
Yeah.
is one of the only famous residents of my hometown, Oakville, Ontario.
Hey,
Lauren Holly.
all
Lauren
right.
Holly and Tom Cochrane, who sang "Life Is a Highway."
So, okay, big question. Life is a highway. Like removing the homerism, Tom Cochrane or Rascal Flatts, Life is a Highway.
Oh, I would much rather take the Tom Cochrane version. And
Yeah.
actually, a story about this.
Okay.
My dad uh ran it's a story my dad tells all the time is that he ran into Tom Cochrane at a gas station that like in the midst of the mania of the Rascal Flatts cover, and he asked him about it, and Tom Cochrane didn't seem to like it very much. He's like, yeah, I don't really like that they don't have the harmonica in it, and I don't know, it's not my version.
My son was briefly obsessed with Cars, so I've heard that version a lot. Yeah, it's not that good that the Rascal Flatts cover. It's very elevator music. It's not that great.
Yeah.
I also worked on a Hallmark movie. Well, I actually worked on the movie before they. I was a driver for Hallmark movies at one point, and my
Hmm.
friend on the next movie drove Lauren Holly in because she was in the movie, and he would drive her around.
Was she nice?
He was apparently quite starstruck, and there was like the whole COVID mask situation
Okay.
on, and they were so it was a little muted, but so he doesn't have many stories about her, but he was quite starstruck and still has her phone number in his phone.
Wow.
Can you text him? Maybe we could like call her
Yeah, can we
for
call her?
the. I'm a little starstruck by Joel's Lethal Weapon 4 hat.
Oh yeah, I wore this for you guys.
Nice. Very nice.
That's gonna be apropos of an announcement soon.
Oh
If
really?
um
Possibly.
if I'm Riggs and Adams Murtaugh, Joel, who are you in the Lethal Weapon?
What do you? I'm obviously Joe
Are
Pesci.
you Pesci? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. All
Yeah.
right.
Why do you want to be Riggs?
I don't know. Because my life's a disaster.
I do need to ask you guys, MT Movie Awards question.
Okay.
Jason Scott Lee was nominated for Best Breakthrough Performance for Dragon, the Bruce Lee story. I want to see if in your estimation they got it right.
All right.
So he did not win. The fellow nominees were Alicia Silverstone for The Crush, Ray Fiennes for Schindler's List, Jason Scott Lee for Dragon, Ross Malinger for Sleepless in Seattle, which I feel like he achieved his promise in sudden death as kid who needs to stay in his seat. And Jason James Richter for Free Willy. The winner was Alicia Silverstone. Do you think of the five, she was the breakthrough performer from that performance?
I would say, I mean, for long-lasting career, obviously Alicia Silverstone's still around, but Ray Fiennes is maybe had the biggest career out of all of them, I
Could
would
you
say.
imagine
Yeah,
At the MTV Movie Awards?
yeah.
Could you imagine Ray Fiennes standing on the stage at the MTV Movie Awards accepting an MTV Movie Award for fucking Schindler's List?
I could just imagine the montage where they show a clip from Schindler's List over like Guilty by Gravity Kills. So, all right, Jason Scott Lee, we're dedicating a month to him. Like I've kind of expressed like I think that he's just really charismatic and I think that his physicality like in this and then also we'll talk about the Jungle Book and next week, but like it's just really shows off like what a cool action performer he is too. So like are you guys fans of him or like what is it about him that you like or don't like?
Well, I think he's great in this movie. I honestly, I had to look him up while I was watching the movie. I
Yeah.
was like, who is this guy? And then obviously I remember him from other stuff, but I think he is really great. And like you said, as a physical performer, does he have like a direct to video action career? Because I feel like he could be prime for that.
He took over the Time Cop franchise in the DTV era, but I think he was just in one
Oh,
movie.
I want to watch those then.
Yeah.
I didn't, I don't think I love the original Time Cop, but I didn't even know that there was Time Cop sequels in
Talking
the
about sequels,
DTV.
yeah.
Yeah, he was in Time Cop 2. I think that he also had kind of like a long stretch of DTV era in the early 2000s because um yeah, he kind of just went away after the 90s and then like he popped up in Lilo and Stitch as like a voice role, but that was about the from what I could tell like the last like big thing that he had. He was in the Mulan live action version that nobody saw because of COVID, and he could have won an Oscar if he hosted SNL and instead of musical guest, he just did fight scenes for
That
instead
would
of
be
songs.
awesome.
That would have been cool.
I think that SNL should pivot to that every now and then, just stunt show instead of musical guest.
Well,
Yeah,
that reminds me. One time I went to a Toronto Argonaut game, which is a Canadian Football League team.
sure.
The halftime show was a Tony Hawk skate show.
Nice.
That sounds amazing.
Were there
It was
like were there like 2000s like ska bands there? Like because that would complete the experience. If like
that would have
Dojo was
ruled.
playing
Yeah,
in the background or something like that.
yeah. If the Canadian ska band, if Il Scarlet was there, then it would have completed the
That would have been
2000.
better. We completed it. Yeah.
Not that sounds better than I went to a Chicago Bulls game and the halftime show was an Oreo cookie eating contest. And the winner got sick. Not very surprising, but yeah. All right. Anything else on Dragon, the Bruce Lee story?
Yeah, my little tidbit here is that having no idea what was in Dragon the Bruce Lee story before I watched it, starting last night and finishing it today. Yesterday, I went to the theater to see Breakfast at Tiffany's.
I
Oh,
watched that this morning at home, coincidentally.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that it played any part in this movie, but I will say when Mickey Rooney was on, it was a crowded theater, and when Mickey Rooney was on screen, and this was a reactive audience, but you could hear a pin drop in that
Yeah.
audience.
Oh, sure.
It's a
Yeah.
real air
Compared to
gets
what it's
sucked out
like,
of the room
yeah,
performance. Yeah.
yeah. Compared to what it like as depicted in Dragon, it's that all the white people laughing at it. Nobody was doing that yesterday.
All right. Well, thank you, Joel, for joining us. Where can we find your work on the internet, my friend?
So on Instagram, I am Joel Baby. It's JoelLBAby. You can find stand-up clips and other videos and posts there. And that's sort of like the hub where I am posting right now. And you can find my stand-up album on Spotify and other streaming services.
And watch his Avatar guy video on YouTube because that was one of the funniest things I've seen all year.
Oh, thank you.
I
Yeah.
really, really like that. So we'll be back next week with special guest Rosalie Lewis. We are going to talk about Rudyard Kipling's The Jungle Book, a movie that I'm pretty sure I'm the only one who still talks about, and I might be the biggest fan in the world of. So until next time.
These seats know kung fu.